off to a boardroom, then we had a bar, and then the members' dining room all on the north end. And then we increased the area down below in the ladies' locker room for facilities that they were short on showers, as well as restrooms, and then put on that pub addition on the back side, and that worked out very well. And eventually we could hold up to 350 people in 4 dining rooms upstairs. They were all interlocked, and we redesigned it so each one could be individually attainable, as well as partitioning them so that they would all be a continuous one huge dining room. So the parties that we had were enormous. We had a Hawaiian party that was a highlight of years, where we'd have 300 people here, and you have dances and music, and it really was a show place as well as a fun place. The activities were mixed couples on Sunday. We'd have maybe 30 couples who played, and then after that they had dinner on Sunday afternoon. The tournaments themselves, as other previous members have been talking to you about, were extravaganzas. The invitation was huge. I mean, there were lines, and one year Ray and I, the fellow I talked about, whether or not a small company or a big company, what's the advantage or disadvantage, we won one year. And that was a highlight of it. And the other thing is, I won a Class B championship, which was, I never had entered it, and then finally the guys told me, go ahead and do that. And I won the darn thing, and it was something that I really did play well. But the next year they said, you have to defend it. And I hadn't played, and suddenly I'd somewhat lost. I lost in the first match on a playoff hole. So I thought, now I'm back to where I don't play any more competitive. I somehow, one year I played excellent, and the rest of the time I played fairly well, but I really didn't play because I worked a lot of hours over my work at high level before I retired, and with the family, and that was my priority. But golf was a fabulous game, not frustrating, but a challenge, because every day, every shot was different. And when you look at the pros now, how absolutely fabulous they are, it's incredible the skill that they pull off and how they do it. Is because they, like Trevino says, the more I practiced, the luckier I became. So that was it. So those are the things that I had, in accomplishments. I took number 8 hole behind the tee. There was a water fountain there, and they took it down, and all this piping was still sticking up in the air. I said, what is this? And I found out, I talked to Jim Noel, and he said, well, it's the piping that we've left from the water fountain. I said, why don't you cut it down? He said, I haven't had time. But there was a electrical switch where they went ahead and had the automatic sprinkler system. So I measured the pipes and everything, and I went to a nursery, and I found out there's these infamous rocks that are, and I bought one, and I put over it. It covered that darn thing. I got tired of looking at it. And then when I became very interested in the memorabilia, which we changed the committee to historical committee, we went ahead and decided to go ahead and change a number of things. And I had the 1922 minutes of the club, where they actually had named all the holes, and we updated those, retaining 8 of them and changing the rest, handling that. And then got the board approved, changed that, and then subsequently I decided there's markers, granite markers, gravestone markers we call them, and we put down on these gravestone 19 holes, because on number 12 we have an old and a new one, and we renamed them, and then we cut in the granite was one, the name of the hole that now was approved after 50 years, the length of it, and the yardage that it was. So the yardage and the name of it and the whole number was all supplanted. Then I saw on the board meeting minutes in the House Committee that they wanted to make a large clock, and it was like $45,000, which was incredible. Well, in Florida we had this clock that I found Forest Country Club, where I'm a member down in Fort Myers. They had a clock that cost $1,500. Well, so I said, why do we spend $45? So I found out about it, and So I said, well, you can buy it for 15, let's do it. So I did, and we had it shipped from California, and the clock face portion came in, and it was defective. One of it's two-sided, and one didn't run. So I called them back, and they said, well, we'll send you another one. And I said, well, how do you want me to send this other one back? And he said, no, keep it. We don't want it back. So that second one came in, and it didn't work either. So they gave me a third one, which worked both ways. Now I had a new clock with a post and stanchion, worked, but I had these two big faces, which were probably 36 inches in diameter. And I said, you know, I can get these things fixed because they are electronic. And that can't be that complicated. So for $25 each, I had them repaired and working. Found a manufacturer in the city who took care of the manufacturing of the post and the pipe and the base. So for another $300, we had $300 invested, $600. We had two more clocks. So we have now a clock at the number one tee position. The other one is at the driving range, where people can always see what time it is to get to their tee time on time. And the other one is at the south end of the swimming pool, where the people at the pool can see it, versus a small clock that was on the locker in the building there, and the people from the chipping area could see it there. So it worked out to be a great little switch over in the train. So that worked well. So then we really had a chance one year to go through all the paperwork that we had collected and pictures and everything, which took maybe 2 years, reviewing everything and separating it, and found out about the 68 and 66 Cleveland Open. And there was newspaper articles, and there were pictures and everything. And so in the men's grill, we had a lot of photographs, and they had some photographs of the old clubhouse. So for about a year and a half or 2 years, we went ahead and I put together, we had 22 new exhibits in the clubhouse, which showed even a sport coat that the board of directors and the marshals used in the 68 Open. And we had scorecards, we had statistics of it, we had photographs, we had everything for those two. And then the Tillinghast room, we had schedules and pictures of Tillinghast, who was the designer of this golf course. He was the old timer. Anybody from 1960 or earlier was considered an early architect. Well, he did his work in the 20s and the 30s, and he designed this Lakewood course, the only one in the state of Ohio, and he was here twice, which was interesting because most designers now just design the paperwork and they're not there, but Tillinghast did that, and he designed over 80 golf courses, and he did a great job here. And this golf course was optioned for 18 with another 9, which was never built because the driving range took care of that, and it was used as a driving range. But so this exhibit of his techniques of 1 or 2 shooters or 3 shooters, he called, or 5 shooters, are up on the walls, and we had a bookcase, and this was all due to one person who I followed for 20-some years, Ken Stover. And Ken Stover, I got him to get his life membership early because he was having some health problems. And I told these fellas, he initiated the Jamboree, which was one individual from each course as a team from Westwood and Lakewood. He did the green coat. He was also instrumental in the Invitational. He did so many things on major commitments and programs and tournaments, and his wife was 11-time champion in women's and president of the Women's Golf Association at Lakewood, as well as the Northeastern Ohio Golf Association. So here's a family, and he was in his late 70s, early 80s, and was close to being a life member, but a few points short. And I wrote to the board in a year and a half. I just told them, before we pass on this gentleman and wait for it, it's time to do it. And the recognition was given to him. And unfortunately, as David, who is recording this, and I have agreed that one mistake that we had, we never got to Ken early enough to cover his interview like we had with all these 21 people, to listen to what he had. It would have been a golden age. We could have just saved ourselves millions of hours. But anyway, but he was just an individual that was outstanding. And he, in fact, became number 4 in the Tillinghast Association, and he was their marketing guy. And
one of the founding members.
Founding members, exactly. And of course, Dave and I are members. And I had a unique thing. I had like 113 on it, and Ken said, that's too high. I'm going to get you a different number. And I said, how are you going to do that? And I don't know how you, because I have two certificates, 174 and 133 both. So however he did that, but that was just gracious. So those are a number of the things that were accomplished. The creativity and dynamics of change and designing and doing things is what I really, it's not work, it's absolutely a love, and that has continued on things that I do since I've retired 14 years ago. So three things I also would like to talk about very briefly, which are very, very important, I think. First, when we finished up with Ken Stouffer, we talked about in our meetings trying to honor people who have been instrumental in the major steps of advancement of the club and service that they had. So the historical committee initiated a A.W. Tillinghast Appreciation Award, and in 2010 we went ahead and had an award for a review of people in the past who have contributed in all kinds of ways, but major steps in the advancement of Lakewood Country Club. And the honorees for that year were, number one was Ken Stouffer. Well, he had passed maybe 3 or 4 years ago. The remarkable things that he accomplished while as a member of Lakewood Country Club board, secretary, all the tournaments that he started, his wife is participating, those things. So he was our number one choice. We had also then Don Burney, who is a life member, past president, who was instrumental in land acquisitions of parcels of land that were not in a rectangular, but they were parcels outside, were trading of land and making sure that the property owned was continuous all throughout the tract that is existing now. After that was Bruce Gilbert. Bruce Gilbert was instrumental over a 3-year period of long-range planning chairman, who initiated taking this golf course and providing a course that would be not developed over and over and changed over by committees or by personnels and personalities in this club, where it was changed in the respect that we had an update from Stephen Kay, an architect out of New Jersey, who was very familiar with A.W. Tillinghast, who had done updates on Tilly's courses, his newest style, knew his likes, his design concepts, came here, and we found him through the aspects of search on the country for an architect. And when we found him, he then had a proposal of changing the golf course, which sometimes bunkers were misplaced, they weren't in the proper positions. The course itself was then completely redesigned in miniature in certain areas to reflect the original course of A.W. Tillinghast in 1921. And that was very, very...
When did that course renovation take place?
That was probably 2000, probably 4, probably 7 years ago. And Stephen Kay, who came here, and Jim Noel learned how to really do things differently from his work with them when they were doing some renovations of bunkers, as well as tees, as well as the layout of the golf course, and changing it not into a course that was sort of Irish, an Ireland style, where they had high weeds and things that had fantasies of Ireland, but it was really back to his original design. So those were the 3 people on A.W. Tillinghast Appreciation Award. The other 2 incidents that need to be recorded so people will know: long-range planning was by Bruce Gilbert, who was involved with the golf course for that 3-year period with Stephen Kay. And in that aspect, that was a 3-year program. So Bruce Gilbert guided that whole thing, and also then put into the bylaws of this club that the course could not be changed unless there were 51% of the membership voted to change it. The reason for that, again, as I alluded to, is that golf chairman or green chairman would come in and say, we're going to move this bunker, and then the next year chairman would push it back in, and it constantly reverberated on changes that cost money and that were not designed in the original concept. So when that was done and it was put into the bylaws, it stopped all of the trying to do small changes that were expensive as well as not needed and not wanted. So that was a major, major concern of 3 years. The second individual is Dave Lauterbach, who you have already seen excerpts maybe of his conversation when he was interviewed. He went ahead and was responsible and in charge of updating all of the grounds